I remember the way the dust hung in the air that evening, heavy as the silence in the room. The wooden walls of my father's cabin creaked with every gust of wind, like they were mourning the fate that had just been sealed for me. I was only 16, far too young to be called anyone's wife, but on the frontier, a girl's wishes often mattered less than survival. My father, broken by debt and weariness, had signed my life away to a man I had never spoken to, an enormous cowboy who seemed more legend than flesh. When I first saw him, he filled the doorway like a mountain rising from the plains. His broad chest, bare beneath an open vest, glistened with the sweat of hard labor, muscles carved like stone from years of ranch work. His shadow stretched across the floor, reaching me before he even spoke. I trembled. I had heard whispers about him, the giant cowboy who never smiled, whose fists could fell a man faster than a bullet. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might break free of my ribs. That night, as the preacher's words bound us together, I felt less like a bride and more like a lamb led to slaughter. I couldn't meet his eyes when he slipped the ring onto my finger. His hands were rough, the kind that had roped cattle, held guns, and fought storms, and yet, when they brushed against mine, I felt something unexpected, a gentleness that didn't match his fearsome reputation. Still, I wouldn't allow myself to hope. Hope was dangerous for a girl in my position. The first week was a blur of fear and silence. His cabin sat at the edge of the prairie, where the grass rolled like waves under a relentless sun. Inside, the walls were bare, save for a rifle mounted above the fireplace and a table scarred with years of use. At night, the coyotes sang, and the wind howled through the cracks, and I lay awake, stiff with dread, waiting for the moment he would claim me as his own. But he never did. Instead, he slept on a cot by the door, leaving me the bed to myself. He rarely spoke, but when he did, his voice was low, steady, like distant thunder. He called me Miss more often than by my name, as though he were afraid to forget I was not yet a woman grown. He cooked beans and cornbread with clumsy hands, always serving me first before taking his share. And each morning, before the sun lifted its head over the horizon, he was out tending to his horses, his silhouette cutting across the pale light like something out of a dream. At first, I mistook his silence for indifference, but as the days passed, I began to notice the little things. The way he kept his revolver holstered when strangers rode by, though his reputation begged him to show his strength. The way he brushed down his horses with such patience, speaking soft words to them as though they were family. The way his eyes lingered on me when he thought I wasn't looking, not with hunger, but with a kind of sorrow I couldn't understand. It was on the seventh night that the truth began to unravel. A storm had rolled across the plains, fierce and wild, rattling the cabin with wind that screamed like lost souls. I was trembling in bed, clutching the quilt tight, when lightning split the sky and thunder shook the earth. I gasped, and in an instant, he was there, kneeling beside me. His hand, warm and steady, rested over mine. "You're safe," he said, his voice rough yet gentle. "I won't let anything harm you." "Not ever." For the first time, I dared to look into his eyes. What I saw there stole my breath. They weren't the eyes of a brute or a monster. They were weary, burdened, but filled with a fierce, protective kindness. In that moment, I realized the truth: this marriage wasn't something he had wanted either. He hadn't chosen me. He had chosen to protect me. The days that followed were different. I found myself watching him with new eyes. I saw how he carried scars across his arms and back, marks of battles fought not for glory, but survival. He told me, one quiet evening by the fire, that he had once been hired muscle for ranchers and lawmen alike, a man who sold his strength because he had nothing else. But every fight, every job, had left him emptier, until he had walked away from it all. My father's desperate bargain had caught him off guard, but he had agreed because, in his words, a girl deserves a roof over her head and someone to keep her safe in this world of wolves. I felt tears burn in my eyes as he spoke, and for the first time, I understood that beneath his towering frame was a man who had only ever wanted peace. A man who had chosen to bear the weight of loneliness so others could rest easy. That night, as the firelight danced across his face, I found myself reaching for his hand. He looked down at me, startled, as though he'd never expected such a gesture. "You don't have to be alone anymore," I whispered. His hand closed gently over mine, and in that silence, something unspoken passed between us. What began as a forced union became, over time, a bond forged in trust and quiet moments. He taught me to ride his strongest horse, laughing softly when I clung too tightly to the reins. He built me a garden by the cabin, turning the earth with those great hands, careful not to crush the delicate seeds. And each evening, when the sky burned with colors too wild to name, we would sit side by side on the porch, saying little, yet feeling everything. I once thought the frontier was a place that stripped a woman of choices, but I was wrong. It gave me a choice I had never expected, the choice to see the man behind the legend. To love not the giant cowboy the world feared, but the gentle soul he truly was. And so, a week after being forced into marriage, I discovered who he really was: not a monster, not a brute, but the kind of man a girl could build a life with, the kind of man whose strength was not in his fists or his size, but in his heart.